And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Lord, and wept sore. Welcome, Celestial Seekers, to another episode of Celestial Chronicles. Today, we dive into the poignant story of Hannah, a woman deeply grieved by her inability to have children. Hannah's heartache was compounded by Peninnah, her husband's other wife, who ridiculed her relentlessly for being childless. Despite the loving efforts of her husband Elkanah to console her, Hannah's pain remained. Elkanah would say to her, "Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am not I better to thee than 10 sons? Yet, no amount of love and comfort from Elkanah could ease the anguish in Hannah's heart. Have you ever faced a situation where no amount of comfort could ease your sorrow? Share your thoughts in the chat. Hannah's sorrow was not just personal but also social. In ancient Israel, a woman's worth was often measured by her ability to bear children. This societal pressure added to her grief, making her feel inadequate and ashamed. Peninnah's constant mockery only deepened Hannah's despair. How do you think societal expectations affect personal grief? Let's discuss in the chat. In her deep sorrow, Hannah decided to take her burden to the Lord. She went to the tabernacle and poured out her soul in prayer. Her lips moved, but her voice was not heard, a reflection of her deep, silent anguish. She wept bitterly, asking God to look upon her affliction and grant her a son. In her prayer, she made a vow to God: if he would give her a son, she would dedicate him to the Lord for all the days of his life. Have you ever made a promise to God in a moment of desperation? How did it change your life? Let's discuss in the chat. Hannah's heartfelt plea was a turning point in her life. She took her sorrow and transformed it into a prayer, reaching out to God with all her heart. This act of faith would soon lead to a miraculous answer, but for now, Hannah left the tabernacle with a sense of peace, believing that God had heard her cry. Have you ever felt a sense of peace after pouring out your troubles in prayer? Share your experiences with us. Before we dive deeper into Hannah's story, don't forget to explore our other videos on Celestial Chronicles and join our channel for more inspiring biblical tales. Stay with us as we continue to unfold the incredible story of Hannah and the birth of Samuel. Hannah's prayer and vow. O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but wilt give unto thine handmaid a man-child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." Hannah could no longer bear the weight of her sorrow. In a moment of profound desperation, she went to the tabernacle, the central place of worship for the Israelites. There, she poured out her soul before the Lord, her heart laid bare in fervent prayer. As she prayed, her lips moved silently, her words a whisper in the stillness of the sacred space. This silent plea was filled with emotion, a testament to the depth of her anguish and the strength of her faith. Hannah's prayer was more than a request, it was a vow. She promised that if God granted her a son, she would dedicate him to the Lord for all the days of his life. This vow was significant, as it meant her son would live a life of Nazirite dedication, a special commitment that included abstaining from cutting his hair. In making this vow, Hannah was not only seeking to end her personal sorrow but also offering something precious to God, showing the depth of her faith and commitment. While Hannah was deep in prayer, Eli, the high priest, observed her. Seeing her lips move without hearing any sound, he mistakenly assumed she was drunk. Approaching her, Eli rebuked her, saying, "How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee." Hannah, distressed by his misunderstanding, quickly responded, "No, my lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto." Eli, realizing his mistake, blessed her, saying, "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him." This blessing from the high priest gave Hannah a sense of peace and hope. She left the tabernacle with a lighter heart, her faith renewed by Eli's words and the belief that God had heard her plea. Hannah's prayer and vow represent a powerful moment of faith and dedication. She turned her sorrow into a prayer, showing that even in our darkest times, reaching out to God with sincerity can bring peace and hope. Have you ever made a promise to God in a moment of desperation? How did it change your life? Let's discuss in the chat. As we continue to follow Hannah's journey, we'll see how her unwavering faith and vow lead to a miraculous answer. Stay with us on Celestial Chronicles to see how this story unfolds. God answers Hannah's prayer. Hannah's prayer was sincere, and her faith unwavering. After pouring out her heart at the tabernacle, Hannah returned home, her spirit lifted by the blessing of Eli the priest. In due time, the Lord remembered Hannah. Her deepest desire was fulfilled when she conceived and gave birth to a son. True to her promise, she named him Samuel, which means asked of the Lord, acknowledging that he was the answer to her fervent prayers. Imagine the profound joy and gratitude Hannah must have felt as she held her newborn son. Her years of heartache and sorrow were transformed into an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. Every glance at her baby reminded her of God's mercy and faithfulness. Samuel's birth was not just a personal victory for Hannah but also a testament to the power of prayer and the faithfulness of God. As Samuel grew, Hannah nurtured him with a deep sense of purpose. She knew that her son was destined for a life of service to the Lord. When Samuel was weaned, a milestone typically reached around the age of 3, Hannah prepared to fulfill her vow. This was no small task, for she was about to give up the child she had longed for and cherished. Despite the natural maternal attachment, Hannah's faith remained steadfast. When the time came, Hannah journeyed to the tabernacle in Shiloh, bringing Samuel along with her. She also brought a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, as offerings to the Lord. These offerings were a sign of her gratitude and dedication. Upon arriving, she sought out Eli, the priest. Presenting Samuel to Eli, she said, "O my Lord, as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him, therefore also I have lent him to the Lord, as long as he liveth he shall be lent to the Lord." Eli accepted Samuel, and from that day forward, Samuel began his life of service to the Lord under Eli's guidance. This act of dedication was a profound demonstration of Hannah's faith and her commitment to her vow. It was also the beginning of Samuel's significant role in the history of Israel, as he would grow to become one of the nation's greatest prophets and leaders. Can you imagine the strength it took for Hannah to fulfill her vow? What are your thoughts on dedicating something precious to a higher purpose? Share your reflections in the chat. The story of Hannah and Samuel continues to inspire believers today, showing that sincere prayer and faith can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Stay with us as we explore the further blessings and impact of Hannah's faithfulness in the next chapter of her story. Samuel's dedication. Hannah's heart was filled with both joy and resolve as she prepared to fulfill her vow to the Lord. Samuel, the precious son she had prayed for, was now old enough to be weaned, a process that marked a significant milestone in a child's early years. Typically, this would be around the age of 3, a time when children are no longer dependent on their mother's milk and can begin to take on a bit more independence. Despite the natural bond that had formed between mother and child, Hannah was determined to keep her promise. She knew that Samuel was a gift from God, and she had pledged to dedicate him to the Lord's service for all the days of his life. With a heavy yet committed heart, she prepared for the journey to Shiloh, where the tabernacle was located. Hannah did not go empty-handed. Along with Samuel, she brought a significant offering, a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine. These were intended as a sacrifice to the Lord, a tangible expression of her gratitude and devotion. The journey to Shiloh was likely filled with mixed emotions, joy, sorrow, and a deep sense of purpose. Upon arriving at the tabernacle, Hannah sought out Eli, the high priest who had previously blessed her. She approached him with Samuel by her side, her heart swelling with both pride and a sense of solemnity. She reminded Eli of their previous encounter, saying, "My Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you, praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord." Eli listened to Hannah's words, and his heart was moved by her faith and commitment. He accepted Samuel into the service of the tabernacle, recognizing the significance of this act. Samuel, still a young boy, was now set to begin his life dedicated to God's work. Under Eli's guidance, he would learn the ways of the tabernacle, grow in wisdom, and eventually play a crucial role in the spiritual leadership of Israel. For Hannah, this moment was bittersweet. While she was fulfilling her sacred vow, she was also parting with her beloved son. Her faith, however, was unwavering. She knew that Samuel was in the hands of the Lord, and this gave her comfort and strength. Every year, she would visit Samuel, bringing him a little robe she made for him, a symbol of her enduring love and connection. This annual visit must have been a deeply emotional time for Hannah, a chance to see the boy she had dedicated to God grow and flourish. It was also a reaffirmation of her faith and her commitment to the vow she had made. The act of making and bringing the robe was a small yet significant way for her to stay connected to Samuel and to continue showing her love and support. Hannah's dedication of Samuel is a powerful story of faith, commitment, and the strength of a mother's love. It reminds us of the importance of keeping our promises, especially those made to God, and of the profound impact that faith can have on our lives and the lives of those around us. What are your thoughts on the sacrifices made for faith? Have you ever made a promise to God that required a significant act of dedication? Share your stories and reflections in the chat. Stay with us as we continue to explore the remarkable journey of Hannah and Samuel, and how their story unfolds to reveal even more blessings and divine purposes. Hannah's continued blessings. Hannah's story didn't end with the dedication of Samuel to the Lord. In fact, it was just the beginning of a series of continued blessings that highlighted her unwavering faith and God's generous response. After leaving Samuel in the care of Eli at the tabernacle, Hannah returned home. Though she must have felt a pang of loss each day without her beloved son, she remained steadfast in her faith, trusting in the Lord's plan. To express her profound gratitude and joy, Hannah composed a song of praise, often referred to as Hannah's prayer. In this song, she rejoiced in the Lord's power and faithfulness. My heart rejoices in the Lord, my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. Her prayer went beyond personal gratitude, it extolled the virtues of God, celebrating His justice, strength, and mercy. Hannah's song is a powerful testimony to the impact of faith and divine intervention in her life. The Lord continued to bless Hannah for her faithfulness. She visited Samuel each year, bringing him a new robe that she lovingly made. This annual ritual not only allowed her to maintain a connection with her son but also showed her enduring commitment to the vow she had made. Can you imagine the joy in Samuel's eyes as he received each new robe, a tangible sign of his mother's love and dedication? But God had even more blessings in store for Hannah. After Samuel, she was blessed with 5 more children, 3 sons and 2 daughters. This was a remarkable turnaround for a woman who had once been deeply grieved by her inability to conceive. These additional children were a testament to God's generosity and faithfulness. Each child was a reminder of how the Lord had turned her mourning into dancing, her weeping into joy. Hannah's continued blessings extended beyond her immediate family. Samuel grew up to become a significant figure in Israel's history. He was not just a priest but also a prophet and the last judge of Israel. Under his guidance, the Israelites experienced renewed spiritual direction and leadership. Hannah's faith and dedication set the foundation for Samuel's profound influence on his nation. As Samuel grew and served at the tabernacle, he gained favor with both the Lord and the people. His wisdom and integrity became evident as he matured, further validating Hannah's faith in God's promise. Samuel's legacy as a leader who anointed kings and guided the Israelites through pivotal moments was, in many ways, a reflection of his mother's devout faith and her dedication to God's service. For Hannah, seeing her son's significant impact must have been incredibly fulfilling. She had dedicated Samuel to the Lord, and God had used him mightily. This fulfillment was not only a blessing for her family but also for the entire nation of Israel. Hannah's story is a powerful reminder of how individual acts of faith can have far-reaching consequences. What are your thoughts on how Hannah's faithfulness led to her continued blessings? Do you see parallels in your own life or in the lives of those around you? Share your reflections and experiences in the chat. As we draw closer to the end of Hannah's story, it's clear that her journey from sorrow to joy is a profound testament to the power of faith, prayer, and dedication. Her life shows us that even in our darkest moments, hope and blessings can emerge when we trust in God's plan. Stay with us as we conclude this remarkable story in the final chapter. Reflections and Legacy. The story of Hannah and Samuel is a powerful narrative of faith, prayer, and divine intervention. Hannah's journey from deep sorrow to overflowing joy is a testament to her unwavering belief in God's goodness and power. Reflecting on her story, we can draw many lessons that apply to our own lives today. Hannah's initial plight was one of profound grief and societal pressure. In ancient Israel, a woman's worth was often tied to her ability to bear children. Hannah's inability to conceive left her feeling inadequate and shamed, especially in the face of Peninnah's constant taunts. Despite this, Hannah did not succumb to bitterness or despair. Instead, she chose to turn her sorrow into a fervent prayer, laying her burden at the feet of the Lord. Her prayer was not just a cry for help but a vow of dedication, promising that if God blessed her with a son, she would dedicate him entirely to His service. This act of turning her deepest sorrow into a promise to God is a profound example of faith in action. How often do we find ourselves in situations where we feel helpless or overwhelmed? Hannah's story encourages us to bring our burdens to God, to trust in His timing and His plans for our lives. It shows us that even when we feel most abandoned or ridiculed, we are never alone if we reach out in faith. When God answered Hannah's prayer and Samuel was born, it was a moment of immense joy and fulfillment. Naming her son Samuel, which means asked of the Lord, Hannah forever marked him as a living testimony to God's faithfulness. Her dedication of Samuel to the Lord was an act of profound faith and obedience. She fulfilled her vow, bringing Samuel to the tabernacle to serve the Lord under Eli's guidance. This must have been an incredibly difficult act, to part with the child she had longed for and nurtured. Yet, Hannah's faith was stronger than her personal desires. She trusted that God had a greater plan for Samuel. Samuel's life and legacy are a direct result of Hannah's faith and dedication. He became one of Israel's greatest prophets, leading the nation through significant transitions, including the anointing of its first kings, Saul and David. Samuel's influence shaped the course of Israel's history, and his story is a testament to the impact that one faithful person can have on the world. Hannah's continued blessings, with the birth of more children, further demonstrate God's faithfulness. Her story reassures us that God sees our struggles and hears our prayers. He can transform our deepest pain into joy and fulfillment, often in ways that exceed our expectations. Reflecting on Hannah's journey, we are reminded of the importance of faith, prayer, and dedication. Her story inspires us to remain steadfast in our faith, to trust in God's timing, and to fulfill our promises to Him. It encourages us to look beyond our immediate circumstances and see the bigger picture of God's plan for our lives. What aspects of Hannah's story resonate most with you? Have you experienced moments in your own life where faith and prayer have led to unexpected blessings? Share your thoughts and experiences in the chat. As we conclude this story from the Celestial Chronicles, let's carry forward the lessons of Hannah's unwavering faith and dedication. Her legacy is a powerful reminder that with faith, anything is possible. Thank you for joining us, and remember to explore our other videos for more inspiring biblical tales. Stay blessed and keep the faith.